Pam has got a tape.
But anytime that we do this type of see what the patient requires contract, we have to do a quick process.
What you doing, huh?
Yeah, but I just don't hear anything.
Oh, we need to hear.
I've got the speakers on,
Okay.
but ain't nothing coming through.
You think we have to be on the phone? Is it 12? Yeah. Yeah, we need to be on the phone. Okay, let me lower it. Here's a phone number. But I wonder if you have to hear it on the phone and look at it on this. You know what I'm saying? So probably a dial in. Let's just move to the train.
It's weird. I got it.
Alright. I guess you had to put this here because it'll record whatever here. 800-947-5134. And the code is 321 779 pounds. It's a motorcycle. This is too complicated. Thank you, Dad.
Welcome to Workers Cooler Conferencing. For operator assistance, please press *0. Enter your conference code, followed by the pound or hash. I'm sorry, your entry 3217799 is not valid. Enter the valid digits, followed by pound. Thank you. If you are the leader, press star now. After the tone, state your name, followed by the pound or hash sign.
Jolene Clayton.
Thank you. You will now be placed in a conference. To mute your line, press *6. To unmute, press #6. Once we get to the blood vessels, well, we see Reggie again, because he's in the hospital, he's immobilized. They actually developed a thrombus in his injured leg. Part of the thrombus breaks off, and then we can track the embolus through the vascular system. So we use the same person to actually teach a little bit of vascular anatomy and physiology. Now, as we'll see, which is new to this edition, we've really integrated the case study into the chapter material. So, for example, the chapter narrative is going to mention the case wherever it's appropriate. And each chapter features a learning outcome that asks students to use a case story to explain a basic science concept. So I'm not sure if you can see it on the right side of your screen. The font's a little bit rough there. But this chapter asks students to use the case study to discuss how a fracture heals. And then in the blood vessel chapter, while there's a separate outcome, asking students to map the passage of an embolus from Reggie's femur up to his lung. Some of the ancillaries, the student ancillaries, also use the case, again, to help provide some relevance for the student and to help them develop their skills at application. If any of you are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, you'll know that there's a real push now to get some higher order learning skills implicated in textbooks and ancillaries. So this case study is one way in which we can promote application. We also have the instructor's manual that I'll show you later, and again, it comes back to the case, and it shows instructors. It gives instructors some ideas how they can use the case effectively, and it provides them with a host of additional resources if they want to use the case in more detail. Now, also on this spread, you can see the learning outcomes, which I just mentioned, and a lot of the ancillaries are organized around these learning outcomes, so you can pick sort of the aspects that you choose to teach and those that you do not. And we also see an overview of these ancillaries that's entitled Ancillaries at a Glance. Now, I've heard a lot of complaints, both from other instructors, and it's actually my own complaint, that students fail to take advantage of all of these free ancillary materials that are available to them. And it's not that they choose not to, it's simply that they're not aware that the ancillaries exist. So this Ancillaries at a Glance feature is the first line of a three-pronged attack against this problem. It reminds students of some of the features of the Passport to Success that we'll talk about later, such as the learning style assessment. And then it highlights all of the ancillaries available and relevant for that chapter. So you can see we have animations. There's a great animation of bone healing associated with this chapter. There's extra figures and feature boxes. there's also the answers to chapter questions. And as we'll see a bit later, all of these activities and resources are all together for the student on the Passport to Success, which is a student website. All right, so that's the first. We sort of introduce the ancillaries right up front. Then as students are proceeding through the narrative, every time they hit a portion of text that has a relevant ancillary, they're reminded to go back to the student website, to take a look at this ancillary. Then finally, at the end of the chapter, we bring them back again, because students are always asking me, where can I get the answers to the chapter questions? Well, at the end of the chapter, we say again, if you want the answers to these questions, go back to the student website. So then if we turn to the next slide, which shows a bit of the main body of the text, in this edition, we've did some pretty dramatic improvements in the art. And in particular, we've targeted art placement. Now, if you've reviewed some of the previous editions of the Memler products, you might have noted that there's some incidences were just not enough to the relevant text. And I've used this, and it was one of the complaints of mine. So in this edition, there's new art, old art.
And small changes dramatically improve the coordination between the art and the narrative. So here's an example from the new edition. You can see on the right side that we have a figure illustrating the bones at the lower extremity. Well, in the last edition, this was actually two separate figures. So as a result of how it was composed, the narrative talked about bone diseases, but the figures showed the bones of the lower extremity. So now, as you can see on this spread, everything is there for them. They have the figures showing the bones of the lower extremity, and then right there is the text that describes these bones. So this seems like such a little thing, but I know with my students it's one of the most important considerations that they have when they're evaluating a textbook. Now, if we can also look at another art element, and this is brand new to this edition, it's called the body visible. And these really do add a lot of value to the textbook. And what they have, you may have seen them in other contexts, they're basically an overlay system. So what we start with is a numbered diagram of an anatomically important structure. For example, here we can see the skin with the number of the skin structures numbered. And then you have an overlay that puts on the actual names of the structures. So if we put the overlay over the image, we get the image that we see at the far right, where you can see we still have the numbers, but beside them we have the names of the structures. Now these are a great study tool for students. They can use the diagrams without the overlay to test their recall, and then very, very quickly they can see which structures they need to review using the overlay with the names on it. And also they're just visually appealing, and they really invite students to look at them, to use them, and to study them. Now, if we turn to the very end of each chapter, there's obviously the traditional elements, such as end of chapter questions. There's a word parts table. There's key terms. What's brand new is this summary overview. Now, these are visual representations of all of the chapter material. Now, I've started using these a little bit. I use them when I plan my lectures and when I write exams to make sure that I've covered everything in the chapter. Now, I can see students using them to mentally organize all of this material because they're such visual learners these days. And they can sort of make sure, and they can also use them to see where a particular topic is covered. For example, they can see that osteomalacia is covered under metabolic bone diseases. Now, the traditional chapter outlines are still useful, and they can, especially for note-taking, so students still can get the traditional style summaries on the Point website. And they can print it off and they can use it to guide their note-taking or their studying if that's the approach that they prefer. All right, so Doug, I'll turn it back to you. I think you were going to introduce the point. Doug, are you there?
Sorry, yes I am, sorry.
Sorry about that.
When your students get the copy of the new Memler, the inside front cover of the book, when you open it up, you'll find a code. And it's very easy to access. You go to the point.lww.com and you simply enter in 4 or 5 lines of information and create your own site within the Point. And you can do that literally within about a minute. Then they apply the code and they have instant access to everything that we're going to be taking resource site for your students, but for you as well. I'm just curious if you have been to the point, if a number of you are familiar with it, if you get a moment to let me know in the chat box, that would be fun to see. But again, it's an easy to access and easy to use site. With Cohen's-Mendler's Human Body and Health Disease and Structure and Function of the Human Body, there are a couple of things in the Passport to Success. I was just mentioning this. This is the opening page to the Passport to Success. Your students are accessing this now through the point, and it's free. It comes with the code inside the front of the book. And you'll notice on your left you have My Power Learning, and you notice on your right you have a large green button, chapter menu. And your students will go to the left one time only. They'll go at the beginning to My Power Learning. When they click on that button, what will open up is access to a learning style assessment tool. And on the right, when they come back throughout the semester, of course, and they're reviewing and studying, they're going to hit that big green button every time. But that's the opening page. Good. Great. Some of you are very familiar with the point. I'm glad to see that. Now, remember on the left, we had the My Power Learning. Your student would do this one time. The access code is not confusing because it's the same code that's in the inside front cover of their book. And they go in and take an examination that really identifies whether they're visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. And understanding that we're all a little bit visual and a little bit auditory and a little bit kinesthetic. But it gives a breakdown upon their primary and secondary learning styles. And then, when they go to that big green button, as they will throughout the semester, this is what opens up. Now, this is an example of Chapter 7. We sort of had a theme here talking about the skeleton. So we selected this, and it's up and running now. And this is the new Passport to Success. And what you can see is that these questions are organized by kinesthetic and visual and auditory. So it ties in very nicely. They know their learning style. They'll find the kinds of questions that they like best and that they can really learn from best. Okay.
Doug, maybe before you go into PrepU,
yeah, I think you were going to mention about that. Okay, go ahead.
Just to talk a little bit about my experience with
please do.
With this site. I just wanted to mention that my students actually really do like this learning styles assessment. They really like to take these quizzes about themselves, and they like to think that they're maximizing their study time. Now, I know, and I'm sure if any of you look at the pedagogical literature, it's pretty obvious that we all need to have some exercises in all three categories. But the students really actually start thinking about how they learn. So we start to have an element of metacognition when they go through this process. So it really does promote students becoming active learners. Maybe a student will realize that just reading the textbook isn't enough to master the material. Maybe they'll be motivated to maybe make some more concept maps or do some more coloring exercises, or even prepare for themselves some auditory lectures that they can listen to themselves, or prepare some flashcards. And I also wanted to mention that this new interface on the Passport to Success, again, has improved. I test drove it a little bit with some of my students, and they do think it looks a lot more usable. There's very few clicks involved. Everything's sorted out by chapter, and so I think it's something that is really going to help student success, and to get them, instead of being a passive textbook user, to be more of an active learner and practice applying the knowledge as well.
And you know everything you said about how the book is structured now too, because you mentioned that many times students don't use ancillaries, may not be aware they're there. That's a great feature of the book, because it will drive them to this. And there's so many visuals here, animations and things that you can teach from, as well as the student can review 24/7. It's a tremendous site. So we want to be able to get you onto this since it's up and running now. Get you some codes, maybe some student access codes, so that you can play around with it. It's a lot of fun actually too. So. All right, PrepU. We had mentioned this too. This is something else that's very unique to this book. You don't see this with the other competitive books in this market. PrepU really is an adaptive quizzing engine. It's built by teachers. It was actually put together by a group out of UCLA, out of the biology department. And they're for the students that were struggling, they wanted to create something that would bring them along, so to speak. And that's basically what adaptive quizzing is. I don't know if many of you are familiar with adaptive versus static, but adaptive quizzing is really about student takes a quiz, they start off with a certain level of mastery, a mastery level. From a 1 to an 8, they may begin with a mastery level of a 1. And as they take a quiz and they do better, then the successive quizzes that are chosen by the system bring them along in an easy way. They don't. The next quiz they take will encourage them to increase their mastery level, but they don't do it. It doesn't do it with questions that are too overwhelming or questions that are too easy that they already know the answer to. So it's challenging. It's sort of like a stairway, step by step. It brings the student up through this adaptive system into a higher mastery level, and the correlation of the number of questions that students actually answer versus their mastery level is a direct correlation. You'll see a student having just a few questions answered and their mastery level is low. They'll answer, someone else will answer 100 times more, and then their mastery level will be at a 6 or an 8. So that's what adaptive quizzing really is, and it does help the student learn more, and it gives you guys, instructors, a window into into your students' progress by showing misconceptions, their strengths, their weaknesses. You can see that on a class basis as well as you can see it on an individual basis. And as I mentioned, the heart of this really is that the questions are just challenging enough to bring your students along to the next level. So we like to call it a personalized quiz builder because it's individualized. You don't see that in static exams. All the students take the same exam, but with adaptive quizzing, it's personalized. And it also gives them personalized reports. So a student can go in and they can see how they're doing and what their mastery level is, but they can also see how they're faring in comparison to the rest of the class. That's kind of an interesting thing. They know if they need to step it up or not. And that gives direct and really quick and very meaningful remediation because it takes them right back to the text. If they're missing something and they're weak in certain areas, PrepU will tell them where to go and where to study in order to understand the material. As I mentioned for you too, this is something that is, of course, is built with you in mind. You can also access those class statistics and reports, tracking each of the students' progress individually, and again, see an overview of the class. It clearly identifies student misconceptions, and this is one of the key features that faculty tell us that they really love, because it alerts you to concepts that most of the students are misunderstanding, and it really gives you an opportunity then to correct those misunderstandings before the next exam. And it's very easy to use. It really is. You can go in. It's intuitive. We do have some support for you. If you need it, there's manuals, and we even have ongoing classes every week that you can join in at your convenience. But it's an easy-to-use, very intuitive type program, and you can even do assignments out of it as well if you like. So, Gary, you've been actually writing some of the questions and have a little bit of familiarity with PrepU. What's your take on this so far?
Well, I'm actually just finishing up the Memler questions today. I'm writing them in conjunction with another instructor named Matt Cohen, who incidentally is Barbara Cohen's husband, so he's certainly well placed to write great questions as well. So the database is almost ready for Memler, but I have used the PrepU system for human form, human function. And I have to say, I'm pretty convinced that it's really worthwhile. I know that when I ask my students, what do you understand? Or do you understand this? And they always nod their heads and smile. And the reason for this is because students don't necessarily know what they understand or what they don't understand. So a real good advantage of PrepU is it shows them exactly what they do understand and what they don't understand. But it shows them this in a very non-confrontational manner. It's not like failing a midterm. It's a lot more gentle. So it's encouraging, it's supportive, but it still tells them, look, you really need to work on this aspect. Now, for me, I don't have a lot of assignments or homework, so I often find that I don't get a lot of legitimate feedback from the class about what I need to talk about, to review in my lectures. So I've tried clickers, but clickers basically just say how well they understood what I just said. Clicker systems don't really tell me very much how much the students have mastered the material based on not only the lectures, but also any study tools that they're using, the textbook, etc. So PrepU was really good for giving me an idea of areas, misconceptions that I had to address, basic general idea of how the students were doing, and it also did identify those problem students in my class of, say, 40 or 50 that I then would have to call into my office and have a little chat with. And and the students just find it really motivating. The mastery aspect it works really well. It gets them coming back. And it is a little bit more active. A lot of the questions that we design are not necessarily just recall. There are a lot of recall questions in there, but there's also various application questions that the students will see once they have the basics in the sort of lower level questions. So the progressive aspect does get students to spend a lot more time thinking reflectively about what they've learned in their A&P classes.
We can wrap it up today with the Instructor Resources, and I think you were going to speak to this as well a little bit, weren't you?
Yes, I was. So these Instructor Resources are found on the point. It's just a separate tab to click that you can see at the top there. And again, they're grouped by chapter. Some of the resources that we have for you are an image bank in case you want to prepare your own PowerPoints, but there are also prepared PowerPoint presentations. Now, a lot of times these PowerPoint presentations that come with textbooks aren't that good because they're prepared by a service provider. But these PowerPoints were actually made by Jason Taylor. Again, he's a structure function author. Now, he's an instructor, an A&P instructor, so he really knows how to use PowerPoints effectively. They're not just sort of text for 17 slides and an image that's too small and up in the left-hand corner. But the best thing is he also knows the content because he's a writer of the content. So you can trust both the content and the style of the PowerPoint presentations. And obviously you'll want to tweak them, but they're pretty usable right out of the box. We also have test questions in two formats. There's a test generator that you can use to prepare quizzes and exams, but we also just have a Word document of the test questions. Because I know myself, I prepare all my exams in the Word format, and I find test generators not as effective as just cutting and pasting questions from a database. So you have both options for that. You also have access to all the videos that the students see, and these are really effective to use in lectures. And finally, I wanted to mention the instructor's manuals. The instructor's guide is really worth a look. For each learning outcome, it groups together all the relevant figures, the tables, and really the content that you need to address that outcome. So it's a good review for instructors just before they're teaching that particular topic. But something else that's useful is it then has a resource section for every single outcome. And in this teaching tools section, as it's called, there's going to be some activities to do in class. There's often additional references that you can either give to the student or that the instructor can read if they want to deepen their knowledge of this area. And then there's also various call-outs to the ancillaries, to say the Ackland's Dissection Atlas, which I don't think we're talking too much about today, and various other just tools to help you teach the material as best as you can.
You know what, we've got some time here, so I'm going to ask if everybody will be patient with me for about 60 seconds. And Carrie, were you finished with that? I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's okay.
I heard a pause. If you want to continue to talk,
I did just take a breath.
I'm trying to take a breath. Okay. I thought it would be fun to go live here because we've been talking about some unique tools. And speaking of static versus adaptive, we were looking at some static slides. So what I'm doing is actually going to attempt to do something live. And it will take me about 60 seconds. So it would be a really good question and comment time if anyone has anything they'd like to type into the chat box. But this is really what kind of... Yes, hello. Is this a comment or... Okay. We also still have that chat box. And I would like to just show you in about 5 minutes a little bit of what Passport looks like today. If you've seen, like I said, if you've seen a previous version, this is pretty much night and day. It's been quite a bit of change, so it's I think you're going to enjoy what you're going to see. And then we can go over live. And by the way, regarding PrepU, the Cohen members and so forth, we will be up and running with this product in mid-March. One of the things that makes it so valuable is that these questions are calibrated across North America from students all across the United States and Canada. And the way we do that is when we get faculty like yourself on board, we give you access. Your students have access. It's absolutely free. And they can play around with the questions and answer questions. The students love it because it's free. And then you get the benefit of actually having hands-on with it. So I will be doing a follow-up email with everyone very shortly. And if you would like to participate in that, it's It's really a simple process, and we can get you started with that in March. We hope you can join with us on that class testing and calibrating those questions. This is what your students looking at, this next page. Every morning when they go in, here it is, or evening, here it is. This is what it looks like. They have the free ebook here. It's a simple click of the link. And I'm not going to do this now because I really, for time and limitations, I like to try to get to the passport. But right here, they click this line, and the book opens up. They simply go to Student Resources, and of course, students do not see that last tab. Let me expand this screen a little bit. Here we go. And there it is, the Passport to Success. Click that. See what it looks like. This is it. As I mentioned earlier, this is the one-time step where they go to get their learning style assessment. They simply click here, use the code inside the front of the book. It's not complicated. There's not another whole set of codes they have to use. And they'll have access to that. Yes, have a question, comment? Little background noise. Okay. All right. And this is what you saw on the PowerPoint screen earlier. You'll notice that as you scroll over, you see the kinesthetic and you see the visual exercises. You'll see a crossword puzzle and so forth. But there are some that are very different as well than some of the kinds of questions that you're familiar with. Key term categories is a neat one for the kinesthetic learner because it requires the students to go in, find a term, and they have to identify if it's a hand or a foot on an arm bone. If you get it right, you'll hear a little ding, and if they get it wrong, what happens is that it will slide back. See something here. Okay. F11 again. Different kinds of questions. I don't know if anyone wants to look at a particular kind of question here, but word anatomy, look and label, of course, is so important to anatomy and physiology. You click and drag. It's the interactivity of this that actually makes it fun. And I'm not trying to do too much of any of these. I just want to give you an overview. Again, we'll get you a code so that you can play with all of these. Bodybuilding is a lot of fun. It's one of my favorites. What happens is when it opens up, you've got this skeleton guy introducing it. You can go in player mode or audience mode, and player mode is really tough because it's all audio. But here you have audio and visual, and you have to answer a question. So, hello? It's kind of fun. It is. Osteocytes are I get this wrong every time. You think I learn? I'm not a very good student. Anyway, so you can't go forward unless you start over again and then get the first question correct. So why don't somebody help me out here and get the right one? Osteocytes are... Okay. I'm not doing it. Okay. Anyway, you guys play around with it. What happens is you build the skeleton, and one of these days I'll get that right, and the skeleton builds up. So it's kind of like a reverse, it's kind of like a hangman with a skeleton. You'll have a lot of fun with that. But really critical to what I wanted to show you are these animations, and I'm hoping I can get a little sound here for you to hear this. I'm only going to get the sound going for about 5 seconds or so, but here we go.
Primarily is cartilage. As the skeleton grows, the cartilage is gradually converted to bone in a process called ossification. These events can be seen most clearly in the growth of a long bone. Ossification of a long bone begins about the second to third month of fetal life, with formation of a primary ossification center at the center of the diameter.
You get the idea. I mean, I wanted to make sure you realize that, there is a voiceover that goes through all of these animations. Now, this particular chapter has one. You're going to see a lot more animations, say, in the cardiovascular chapters, you can imagine, and so forth. But there are a lot of animations scattered throughout. They're very visual, very clear. These are things that you can use in the classroom. You can illustrate by just simply, you can even put a link into your PowerPoint, click right into the point, access these, and then be able to show these in class. And then most importantly, too, your students have access to this 24/7. So please check out the animations of the various chapters when we get codes to you to play around with this. Audio pronunciation, other kinds, and then the answers to the questions for study and review. I know usually faculty will ask where those are, so they're located here as well. There's even a pre-quiz. We get a lot of great feedback on pre-quizzes. So you can use that as you like and be able to understand exactly where your students are beforehand. All right. Questions or comments on that? I did that very quickly. It's a lot more fun when you're playing with it yourself, so like I said, we can do... check in the chat box. While we still have a couple more minutes, what I'd like to do now over, and as I said, Cohen Mimler's books will have this available mid-March, and we hope that this PrepU that I'm going to now, that I hope that you'll be able to, participate with this and get a hands-on with this as well. As I mentioned earlier, the Passport to Success comes free with the book. It's accessed with a code inside the front of the book. It's all packaged with the book. And then we have the PrepU. Now, I'm going to take a look at McConnell's Human Form and Human Function site, McConnell and Hall, by the way, Human Form and Human Function site, because it's up and running. But this will be something very similar that you'll see with the Mimler books. It's quite a system, so it takes just a few seconds to open, but I think you're going to like what you see here. I have a question. That's a good one. This is opening. Can you integrate this material into LMS systems like Angel? I tell you what you can do. The instructor support material that would include the test generators and so forth can integrate. Because of this system resides on the point, what you'd have to do is put into a link as you can. Just insert a hyperlink and go right into it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a very good question. All right, here's what we have. Right now, you can tell here if I switch to student view that we're obviously in the instructor's view, and this is what you can look at 24/7. I'm moving something here out of the way. Okay. Class performance, strengths and weaknesses. Rather than read this list to you, let's just scroll down and take a look at it. You see here that the overall class mastery level at this particular time, and this is a demo, by the way, so we've got just some made-up stuff, but the reality is you're going to always be able to come in here and see exactly what your class mastery level is. And then you know exactly where the number of students have taken, and where they are standing in their mastery level. It looks a little bit like a bell curve, as you might expect. And then you can identify strengths and weaknesses. The strong chapters, you can see where the mastery levels stand. You can see it in the bar graph, very visual and kind of at a glance. You can see where the troubles are and where the weak chapters are and the overall class mastery level. You can also see the overall usage. Now, PrepU usage over time is usually going to be related to when you're giving an exam. That's where these peaks come in, but this is a reality, a real graph of what happens. But again, you can see the number of students, the class percentage that are actually participating, questions, quizzes that are answered, and the number of questions. This is what Carrie was talking about earlier, and I mentioned earlier that faculty really love are these specific misconceptions. It's not just simply, as you can see here, something that's hard to understand, but it's something that all the students are missing. All the students in the program are here, and this particular class is faring even a little bit worse. So there's something wrong with this question. It's a high difficulty level question, and there's a misconception. So you know as an instructor where to go and clarify things. You might want to revisit this in class or however you'd like to do that. But these misconceptions really do stand out. And you can check assignment results, and we won't go into this because we actually have a separate PrepU forum, or also, if you would like, we can do this with your representative or any personal webinar. For time's sake, I just want to be able to switch to student view, but you can do a question assignments up here. You can assign quizzes, and you can do that. Either if you still want to do it static, you can, but the major thing is you can do these mastery level assignments, and you can say, this is my target, this is where I want you to be, and the students have to match that target. And that's a mastery level quiz assignment. And this is critical. You can see here all of your student usage. You have a student here that's answered about 13,000 questions, and the mastery level here is very high. When you get down to a student that's with a little bit lower mastery level, you can see that they're not answering nearly as many questions. There really is a direct correlation to how much time these students spend with the questions and their mastery level. Of course, the higher the mastery level, the better they do. And the rest of this is something that's very easy to do, enroll your students and so forth. But I just want to show you real quickly the question library is also something that is easy to access. You can review quickly, and you can even add your own questions. The main thing I wanted to show you here is that you can do that. Assigning quizzes and so forth. But let's take a look at what the student sees every day. I'm going over to the switch to student view. There it is. Okay, now the student is able to do the same thing that you're able to do. How's my class doing? The student's saying, hey, how am I doing? And they can where assignments that you want to create, if you care to do so, would be situated. And then take a practice exam is what the student can drive him or herself at any time. They can take as many practice quizzes as they want, and then the more quizzes they take, as you saw earlier, the better they're going to fare, the better they're going to do in the course. But they can also identify their own strengths and weaknesses. This particular chapter is, these two chapters are a weakness for the student, so they can take a practice quiz just on those weakest chapters. They see their mastery level is dropping off, they've been partying a little too much maybe, and you go down to your assignment status, and this is not filled in, but this is if a student is taking assignments from you, they'll be able to see what their score is, but they can also compare themselves at any time, mastery level and class average, to the class, I mean, their average score and their mastery level to the class average score and the class mastery level. Then they can take a quick glance at, and the red flags are exactly what you might think they mean. Red flags are saying these are your weak chapters, and you can see here the mastery level is down low for these two particular chapters. So it's at a glance for the students. They know where they are, and what they need to do. So it's a very powerful engine. You have a question?
It's your shift, and we are doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's just, and then I think it's 60 questions or something like that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions or comments on this?
All right.
All right. So I can tell you, and I'm gonna close this out because I'd like to leave one screen up here for a couple of minutes. And again, we would like to follow up with you on an email. Think about that PrepU for a while. We can get you involved with a class test, but also we want to make sure that you're covered with the text of your choice, human body, health and disease, structure and function. And we also like to get you on that passport. It's up and running now, and have a lot of fun with that because it's a powerful study tool, but it's fun. But why not have fun when you're learning? So, we'd love for you to have some hands-on with that. It's one thing to show you; it's another thing when you do it yourself. All right. If there are no other questions and comments, if anyone, Carrie, is there anything you'd like to say to conclude?
I think you covered it all, Deb.
Okay, well, you did, but I sure appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. You are tremendous. She does a great job working with us all the time, so thank you so much. And everyone on the call, we appreciate you taking the time today to register earlier and then to attend today. It means a lot. We hope this has been informative and really helps you out. Please let us know. We'll have the email follow-up, but I'm going to leave this up for a couple of minutes. This is my email address, doug.dobbs@walterscluer.com. And anytime you need me, you can call that 800 number because it comes right through to my cell phone. And I may not be able to answer right away, but I'll get back to you ASAP that way. And that's one of the last things I'd like to say at Lippincott Williams & Wilkins. The reason I like you to have my cell phone number is that anytime you need us, we're here for you before, during, and afterwards. So please let us hear from you, and we look forward to working for you and with you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you. Y'all have a great day. Thanks again.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.